Okay, so where are we at? Period 3. Sorry I couldn't be with you guys today, but we're going to continue on our mini-Q today on page 421 of your packet. So open that up, and we should be looking at the top here, the top 3 questions. Understanding the question, we discussed these last week. What is the analytical question asked by this mini-Q? The answer to this is always, always, always going to be the title of the mini-Q packet. So the analytical question asked by this mini-Q is going to be, what was Harriet Tubman's greatest achievement? I think we went over that in class last week. Question 2 asks what terms in the question, if any, need to be defined. In order to properly answer the mini-Q question, we have to have a handle on all the terms in the question itself, and I think we agreed that greatest and achievement both needed to be defined. Greatest is the best of something, and achievement is a major accomplishment for someone. And finally, I asked you all to write the mini-Q question or the analytical question asked by this mini-Q in your own words. Now, once that is done, we are ready to go on and pre-label our buckets, or pre-bucket label before we look at our 5 mini-Q documents. And if we follow the directions here and on page 421, it says using clues from the mini-Q question, think of logical analytical categories and label the buckets. Now I'm going to suggest a 2-bucket approach. If you look at the page, you have a choice between a 2-bucket approach or a 4-bucket approach. We're going to stick with a 2-bucket approach because I want you guys to work on a 2-body paragraph, a 2-body paragraph essay, which is going to result in 4 paragraphs, your intro, your conclusion, and your 2-body paragraphs. Each of these buckets, when we are finished with our documents, are going to be used to create a particular body paragraph. So we're going to focus on the 2-bucket approach. And using clues from the mini-Q question, I want you to think of logical, analytical categories and label this bucket here and this bucket here. All right. We're going to come back in a moment and take a look at the bottom. But for now, I want you to label the bucket on the left, Harriet Tubman's greatest achievement. Harriet Tubman's greatest achievement. And then over here on the right, I want you to label the right-hand bucket, Harriet Tubman's other achievements. So we've got her greatest achievements here, her greatest achievement rather, and her other achievements here. Ultimately, you're going to have to decide after reading the 5 documents what was her greatest achievement. You'll put that greatest achievement in this bucket, and the remaining documents will go in the second bucket, recognizing her other achievements. Now, even though we're using the 2-bucket approach on our mini-Q, these 4 buckets down here are still going to be helpful for us in determining how they would be used if we were to go to a 4-bucket approach. And I want you to think about this before I comment any further. If these 2 buckets up here for the 2-bucket approach are going to be her greatest achievement here on the left and her other achievements, how might we label 1, 2, 3, and 4 if we were doing a 4-body paragraph essay? Think about that for a second. And I think it'll be pretty obvious to you that each of these buckets is going to be labeled with a specific achievement of Harriet's. One achievement was her role as a Civil War spy, and we will add that here to the first bucket at the bottom. Civil War spy, and she also served as a Civil War scout. So let's call this a Civil War scout and Civil War spy. Another achievement of Harriet's, as we will learn in the documents, she was a Civil War nurse. She served as a nurse to injured soldiers during the course of the war for a couple of years. Another great achievement of hers was as a caregiver at her home that she did for a long number of years, especially when she moved to upstate New York. In Auburn, she took care of sick and disabled and elderly people in her own home, so she was a caregiver. And finally, the major accomplishment, which we're all familiar with. I'm not going to call it her greatest because that's up for you guys to decide when you're writing your essay. But the last category, of course, would be her experience as the conductor of the Underground Railroad. So now that we've got all these buckets labeled, especially for our two-bucket approach, which is going to be the approach that we'll use on our essay, and you have these bottom buckets labeled to give you a feel for what all of her accomplishments were, I would like you all to, at this point, move on and start working individually on analyzing document A on the next page, and get started on that and get as far along as you can on document A and the short answer questions that follow. If you finish document A, don't be shy, move right on to document B, and I will see you all back in class on Tuesday.